Hello guys, Assalamu alaikum. So we are almost in the introduction of financial statements, right? So we did the introduction part and we learned what are the two main financial statement, which is profit or loss statement and statement of financial position, right? And we decided to start off with the profit or loss statement, and profit or loss statement has two steps. One is calculation of gross profit, calculation of net profit, right? So over here we are done with the first part of it, and today we have to learn about calculation of net profit. Okay, so let's see on how to do that. Yes, it's right here. So after calculating gross profit, girls, you have to understand that we have to add all the other income and we have to minus all the expenses. Okay, and finally only we can get the net profit. Remember, gross profit, add all the other income minus all the expenses. Finally, you can get the net profit. So let's look at it one by one. So what is income? Whenever you receive money, that's called income, right? Apart from when you receive additional capital, all the other things that you receive is considered as income, right? So over here examples are interest income, rent income, dividend income, discount received are all income. Okay, so we know that. So what do we have to do? Gross profit, we have to add all these income here. And also before moving to expenses, we have some activity over here which we can do together. Okay, so let's read the question together very carefully. The income and the cost of sales relating to a business for a given accounting period are given below. And you got this a lot of things down here. And let's see the first one, the gross profit or loss for the business. So how do you calculate the gross profit? Do you remember the equation I have given you? Gross profit is equal to sales minus cost of sales. Do you remember that? Okay, so when it comes to sales, there are two things that is given, cash sales and credit sales. When you add these together, how much do you get? 70 plus 48 would give you 118, right? So that's the total amount of sales. And let's look at the cost of sales. So over here, you do not have to calculate anything because the cost of sales is given right away. So minus 52,000 will give you a gross profit of how much? So when you minus 118 from 52, you get a gross profit of 66. Okay, this is a gross profit, not a gross loss. Okay, so over here, the second question says that the total of the other income generated. So how would you find the other income? Why do they mention as other income? Other income means income apart from the sales, because we have used sales right before. So now they want to find what are the other incomes that is generated apart from the sales. Okay, so over here there are a list of things: dividend income, rent income, discount received, interest income are all income, right? So what do you do if we add all of these and find the income? So how much will that be? So 30,000 plus 5,000 plus 6,000 plus 7,000 will give you 48 as other income. So over here, make sure that you work this out in your paper as well. Okay, and now let's move to the next one. Yes, let me clear this out so it's quite going to be easy for me. And the next one, which we are going to learn, is about expenses. So when it comes to business, once again, we have a lot and lot of expenses, right? So all these expenses are categorized into four main parts. That is distribution expense, administration expense, other expenses, financial expense here. So let's look at what are things that comes under these each of these categories. Okay. First one is distribution expense. So let's read it over here and try to get some idea. The expense incurred for selling and distribution of a trading business is categorized as distribution expense, and these include expenses that is relating to selling inventories to promote these sales and carriage outwards. So carriage outward is like the expenses that come up when you distribute a good or service to your customer. So that delivery expense is known as carriage outwards. Okay. So over here, in simple words, distribution expense means anything that comes with selling or distributing over here good or service. Any expense that comes along the way is known as distribution expense. Okay, so let's look at the examples here. First one is advertising expense. So why do you advertise? To promote sale, right? So that is distribution expense. Salaries to salespeople, look at it very carefully. Salaries to salespeople, So salespeople are also dealing with distributing or selling the product, right? So even these salaries as expenses comes under distribution expense. Okay. And now we have a new word called bad debts. So these are the debts that has gone bad. Okay, in simple words, if I have to explain, let's say Robert has to give me around 10,000 rupees. So these 10,000 rupees he's not able to give me, maybe because he's dead or he's mentally ill or the big business is going on a bankruptcy. So because of this reason, if we cannot give, this debt turns out to be a bad debt, and it's more like loss for us because we have to handle this up. Okay, is that clear? Do you understand this? Okay, so now let's do this. Okay, and the next one is discount given. So over here, discount given here once again is, in other words, we can call it discount allowed. So you allow discounts to your debtors, right? So why does it happen? Because of the sale, right? So once again, even discount allowed comes under distribution expense here. Okay, and the next one is about depreciation of delivery vehicle. So this is more like a new word for us. So depreciation of a delivery vehicle. So over here, depreciation means, let's say the value of our vehicle at the start was, let's say, 1 lakh. Okay, and because we have been using the vehicle over and over again, and also there is a lot of repairs, and my car is really worn out by the end of the year, let's say I'm revaluing my car once again to 95,000 because it has met a lot of accidents and all. Okay, so now what is the actual worth of my car? It's only 90,000, 95,000, even though I have bought it for 1 lakh. So this is what I'm valuing my vehicle for. So over here you can see a loss of 5,000, right? So this loss of 5,000 is known as depreciation over here. Okay, I hope this is very clear. So when you revalue your vehicle or building or property, that's called depreciation. So over here, the depreciation of delivery vehicle is only 5,000 here. Okay. So once again, delivery vehicle are used to sell or distribute goods or service, right? So even that depreciation as an expense come under distribution expense here. And the next one is about sales commission. So sales commission, once again, you can see by the word, it's more dealing with sales. So that also comes under distribution expense. And the next one is the next one is administration expense. This is the second expense which we are going to learn. So over here, expense incurred for administration purpose, for more like, running the business day to day. So when you have expense that is more like administration purpose, or something that is happening more often, that's called as administration over there, administration expense. Okay, now let's look at some examples for that. Okay, and over here there are some examples for administration expense. So that is rent payment, that's rent payment and insurance payment, stationery expenses. Hold on, let me write it for you. Depreciation for building, look at this, it's depreciation for building, repair expenses, electricity expenses, depreciation for equipment, everything comes under administration. Okay, because it's more like administration purpose, right? Okay, and the next one is other expense. This is quite very interesting. Okay, the expense and losses that are not classified under above categories are coming under other expenses. For example, loss of crash parts, loss of fires doesn't belong to administration expense or distribution expense, right? So as a last resort, these two things come under other expenses here. Is that clear? And the last type of expense is financial expense. So financial expense are incurred in the business for borrowing of funds and in maintaining bank accounts. In simple words, if there is any expenses that is happening in related to the bank account, that's called as financial expense. Okay, just give me a minute. Yes, okay, I'm really sorry. Okay, So few examples under financial expense would be interest for bank loan, interest for overdraft, and also bank charges. So all these are financial expenses. Okay, so hope that's very clear. And now I think it's time for us to do a tiny question together. Okay, so let's move in over here for us. And when it comes to activity 3, I want you to look into each of these very carefully and categorize them into the type of expense they belong to. Okay. And when it comes to distribution of depreciation of distribution vehicle or depreciation of equipment, I want you to think very carefully on these areas. Okay. Before working it out. Okay. So I hope that's very clear. And this time I'm going to do this question with you over again. Okay. So the following information is obtained from the business of the mirror of the account for the accounting period ended 31st December 20 something. So there are a list of things that's given here. So let's work it out. Okay. So let me show you how the statement actually looks like. So since we are continuing from the gross profit, we have the topic as calculation of net profit for the year ended as 31st December 20 something. Okay. So over here, since you are dealing with expense, once again, you have three columns here. Okay. You have three columns. And now let's look at the first one they have given. Oh, I'm really sorry. And before that, make sure that you write the topic so it will be easy for you. So, gross profit and leave around one line, other income, leave around 3 to 4 lines here if possible. And there's less income, less expenses, and you mentioned distribution expense as the first one, administration as the second one, other expense as the third one, and finance expense as the fourth one, and leave some line and finally write net profit that is transferred to the capital account. Okay, so this is more like the format that you have to be following over here. So now it's time for us to work it out. So what is the first one? Gross profit of 230,000. So gross profit is right here, right? So sorry, gross profit 230,000 you mentioned in the third column over there. And what about the next one? Discount received 12,000, and in investment income 5,000, interest income of 8,000. So all this income comes under other income, right? Look at it very carefully. Discount received, interest income, and investment income are all other incomes, right? So over here, what do? You mention it under other income here. Okay, so let's mention it one by one. Discount received is 12,000, investment income is 5,000, and interest income is 8,000 over there. So after mentioning all of them in the second column, make sure that you have to put everything in the second column. Okay, so after mentioning everything in the second column, you draw a tiny line here. After 8,000 you draw a tiny line, and then you put the total of 12,000 plus 5,000 plus 8,000 on the third column, which is 25,000. Okay, so after mentioning that, what do you have to do next? You have to add 230,000 plus 25,000, which is gross profit plus other income will give you how much? That's 255,000, right? And now we are almost done with this. And remember, there is no description for this amount here. Okay. And now let's give a try on the distribution expense. Okay. And over here, we are almost done with all this. Let me write it over here once again. Gross profit, this, all the incomes are done. And now we have insurance expense of 16,000 and salaries administration 32,000. So which category do they belong to? Insurance expense and salaries administration. Once again, we know that it belongs under administration, right? Because it cannot come under distribution or other expenses or finance expense. So since it doesn't belong to other categories, we know that it belongs under administration because these are administration purpose expenses, right? So you enter 16,000 and 32,000 under administration expense. Okay, so let's record that in the sheet over there. So under administration expense, you put insurance expense how much? 16,000, and salaries administration 32,000. Remember that you have to enter in the first column. Is that clear? This is in the first column. You have to enter all the expenses in the first column. Okay. And the next one is building repair expense. Even that once again comes under administration, right? So let's move over there and enter that as well. Building repair expense 45,000 also comes under administration. And now let's look at the next one. Expenses for sales promotion. So this expense that is coming up is because of selling or distributing, right? So this 30,000 comes under distribution expense, and salaries for sales personnel once again you can see, right? Sales personnel, you're paying for the sales personnel, which means that person is also incurred, that expense is also incurred because of selling or distributing, right? So 25,000 and 30,000 comes under distribution expense. Okay, now let's mention that. So expenses for sales promotion in the first column 30,000, and salaries for sales personnel 24,000 still in the first column. And we still got few more to do here. And then we got interest for bank loan 12,000. So interest for bank loan, which expense is that? So let's look into that. We learned that it comes under finance expense, right? So interest for bank loan at the bottom, can you see here that it comes under finance expense? So under that you write interest for bank loan. In the first column you write the amount, which is 12,000. And we have the last one, losses due to cash frauds. So we know that if it doesn't belong to other categories as a final resort, it comes under which column? It comes under other expenses, right? So over here as a last thing you mention as loss of cash frauds 8,000 over there. And finally what do you have to do is you have to draw lines under each of these expenses here. So under 24,000 draw a tiny line, add it up and put on the second column, which is 54,000. Under administration expense, once again add put a line under 45,000, add all of them and put to the next column. And other expenses, once again you do not have anything to add, so you put it over there and turn into the next column, which is 8,000 once again. And finance expense, you don't have to do anything, add anything, so you just draw a tiny line under 12,000 and transfer it to the second column there. So once you are done with this, what you have to do is that you have to draw a tiny line for the 120,000 as well. Since that is the last part, what do? You have to draw a tiny line. Hold on. So once you are done with all this, you draw a tiny line for the finance expense in the second column as well. And then as a last part, what do? You add all of these expenses. Okay, when it comes to distribution expense, other expenses, all these you have to add. The second column there is 54,000, 93,000, 8,000, and 120,000, right? So you add all of them and write the total expense of 167 in the third column. So over here make sure that you write in brackets because it doesn't allow me here, but don't write minus 167,000 but rather mention it as in bracket 167,000 in brackets. Okay, so once this is done, what do we have to do? All the income minus all the expenses, we have to find what is the net profit now. Okay, so over here what is the net profit? After drawing the line we can see that the net profit is 88,000, right? So over here 255,000 minus 167,000, you will have a remaining of 88,000 in your business over here. Did you understand? So this 88,000 net profit will be transferred to the capital account. So I hope that's very clear. And yes, I got some few questions by the end. Let's see if you can do those. Okay.